Hello, everybody, and welcome to Law and Society. If you're new to my channel, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It really does help me a lot, and I appreciate it very much. Today, I want to talk to you about Donald Trump's trail of felonies, all the way from Georgia to Washington, D.C. and several other states. So I want to update you on what's happening with January 6th because there are a lot of moving pieces related to January 6th. I'll go I'll go step by step. We're learning, every day that Donald Trump. Oh my God, excuse me. We're learning every day that Jack Smith has gotten access or is talking to more states and election officials in more and more states like Michigan and Arizona. And I hope that Jack Smith is also going to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Nevada. And we are getting news that the grand jury, not the grand jury, that Jack Smith has interviewed a lot of these people, like Governor Ducey, former Governor Ducey of Arizona, and the Secretary of State in Michigan, and so we know that's proceeding, and of course, we know about the target letter because Donald Trump posted a big statement on his Truth Social page that he had received a letter saying that he's a target. And the three charges that was talked about in the letter were obstruction, conspiracy to defraud, and deprivation of rights under color of law. I honestly had never heard of deprivation of rights under color of law, and I think it's a very interesting statute after reading it. I don't know much about it, but I think that it would be a robust prosecution. I still believe that there is enough information publicly to say that Donald Trump committed seditious conspiracy and incited an insurrection. So those two statutes of inciting insurrection and seditious conspiracy should be there if Jack Smith has been able to gather enough evidence to meet the burden of proof to indict, which is preponderance of the evidence, which is lower than what the burden of proof will be at trial. It'll be higher, which will be beyond a reasonable doubt. So now we have to look at Jack Smith working diligently. And, I have said seditious conspiracy is the right charge from day one, from November of 2020. And I will be very pleased if Jack Smith does charge him with seditious conspiracy, because that will give me an indication that Jack Smith was able to gather evidence that was admissible in a court of law. So, but I still, I would be happy that he is being held accountable for January 6th, for some things that he did, if not all, if the seditious conspiracy charge doesn't come about, and if the insurrection charge isn't brought. And, there are legal minds that go in many directions here. The question of those three charges in the target letter of obstruction, deprivation of rights under color of law, and conspiracy to defraud the United States, those charges are broad enough that they would cover Donald's conduct as a criminal conduct. But as a national security matter, as a matter of attempting to throw our government, the insurrection charge and the sedition charge would be the ones that would address specifically that sort of factual narrative. Now, what the problem and Andrew Wiseman is a really wise man. Yeah, that wasn't nerdy at all. He said that the insurrection charge would actually could backfire because of the nature of the sentencing, mandatory sentence of being disqualified from public office, because Donald has already been screaming foul even before there has been a game. So, the 18 U.S.C. 2383, inciting rebellion or insurrection, would be a charge that would have the chance of over politicizing. And Mr. Wiseman said that if Jack Smith has enough evidence of the use of force, then seditious conspiracy would be a charge that could also be added. Mind you, my question there is, what is force? Is it just physical force? Or is it also coercion? Is it also political force? Is it also the force that Ted Cruz talked about forcing a vote or forcing the joint session of Congress to delay certification of the votes? Is that forcing? Is the coercion or is the calling of senators when this joint session is in session, like Donald called Tommy Tuberville, to delay it? Are those force? And if Jack Smith determines that constitute force, and force is not limited solely to physical force, then seditious conspiracy is a charge that would not only stick, but I believe the jury will come back with a guilty verdict. And on that matter, there's Mr. Wiseman's perspective. And then there's Glenn Kirshner, who I absolutely respect and listen to all the time, who said that he was disappointed that the insurrection charge didn't show up in the target letter, because that is the crime that would have the mandatory sentence of disqualification from running for elected office. Now, the answer to the politicization of it argument that Mr. Eisman made here would be that the matter is being over-politicized already, and it's being over-politicized by Donald Trump and the GOP. It's not the Democrats who have brought the indictment, it's the grand jury of regular people who looked at the evidence and who saw that this was a crime afoot. And it's not President Biden because he hasn't said a word about it. It's not Merrick Garland because he hasn't said a word about it. It's Special Counsel Jack Smith under the special counsel laws that govern special counsels and their independence, going to a grand jury and getting an indictment from the grand jury. So that politicization, you get what I mean. That is happening, and Donald Trump and the GOP are doing it. So I don't believe, I'm saying, talking about Glenn Kirshner's argument, I don't think that that would politicize it any more than it is already politicized. So I believe Mr. Wiseman's perspective is a conservative one. I don't disagree with it. And Mr. Kirshner's perspective is a more liberal one, and I don't disagree with it. Either way, we know that there are at least 3 charges that will broadly address the crimes of Donald Trump on January 6th and before January 6th. What we don't know, and I asked this to Mr. Kirshner, is whether it is a full list of his crimes that he's going to be indicted for, those 3. And Mr. Kirshner said, in his opinion, probably not. It's not a final list. So we are all in the dark until the indictment is sealed about whether Jack Smith has gathered enough evidence to go forward with the seditious conspiracy or the insurrection charge. Those are the two charges that are the primary charges that anybody would want to talk about or think about in this context, because they add the national security element to the crimes that Donald Trump committed. The conspiracy to defraud, the deprivation of rights under color of law, and obstruction are all crimes, but they don't take into consideration the overthrow of the government aspect of it. Because at the end of it, you ask, so what was the goal? What was the point of all this for Donald Trump to do all this? And the answer is he wanted to stay in power. That's the end point of it. So from my perspective, I can't see that point being resolved if Donald Trump isn't indicted for seditious conspiracy and incitement of insurrection. So I fall in the category of thinking that both of those charges are necessary and public information is available to support those charges. But saying public information is available for those charges is not the same thing as saying we have enough evidence admissible in a court of law to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Because you have to develop that information, and I've explained that before about hearsay and about getting credible information from the January 6th committee testimonies and from other public sources, from online sleuths, provide you with information. You then have to go out and get that person like Cassidy Hutchinson and Pat Cipollone and Mark Meadows and all of them and get their testimony under oath in order for that testimony to be available at trial, because anything short of that is hearsay in a court of law. So the bar is much higher in proving a fact in a court of law than in a court of public opinion, which is where Donald Trump has been adjudicating his cases all his life. He's just very uncomfortable with coming to court, to a court of law with these cases, because his cases are losing cases. So the upside here, one last thing, is that any indictment brought against Donald Trump for involvement in the January 6th insurrection and before that would happen in D.C. We're not going to get Eileen Cannon for that case. And if it comes from the National Security Division, and if either insurrection or seditious conspiracy, or both, are included in the charging document, then it will overshadow the Mar-a-Lago case, and it really won't matter that Eileen Cannon set the date for May of 2024, because this trial, all the evidence has been gathered in the grand jury because it is all testimony. There's no Classified Information Procedures Act delay schedule. That it is just normal discovery of what we have on you, and then Donald pushing back with continuances and delays. But it won't be in Eileen Cannon's court. It'll be in D.C. It could be in a court appointed by a judge appointed by Donald Trump, like Trevor McFadden. But mind you, the eyes of the world will be on that court, and Trevor McFadden, as light as he has been on sentences, he has sentenced people for January 6th, and his own words have been quite strong about what happened on January 6th. So we'll see who gets it in D.C., but we know that it won't be Eileen Cannon. So with that, I think I've covered. Let me just briefly say that Georgia is winding up to indict him, and there's news out that Fani Willis has a huge, massive racketeering charge set up that she's about to indict Donald for. Michigan quietly did its investigations and went ahead and indicted 16 fake electors, and I think it's fantastic. I love Michigan. I absolutely adore Michigan. I went to law school in Michigan. I went to undergrad in Illinois. I love Michigan, and Illinois is a blue state, but Michigan it's a fighting state, and at this point, brava to all the leaders, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Governor. Thank you so much for doing your job. And I believe that we're going to then see Arizona investigation results on the fake elector scheme. I hope that we see it from Pennsylvania. I hope that we see it from Wisconsin. I hope that we see it from Nevada. Can't promise we'll see them, but a lot of wheels are turning right now. And the summer of indictment is not disappointing. So with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for sticking around with me for about 15 minutes. And please subscribe, like, share. It really does help me a lot. Thank you.